I woke to my phone vibrating non-stop, a pulse against my ribs like a second heartbeat. That morning, June sunlight etched itself through the blinds, patterning the sheets in gold rectangles. I didn't know yet that, in whatever corner of the internet things went viral in Curitiba, someone had found my interview with G1 Paraná about my data art. And I didn't know yet the pit forming under my breastbone, the shape my life would take by nightfall. Messages arrived before I could search for the source, the family group chat. My aunt's voice message slyly laughing, "I guess even data can be made useless, nay Lucas," playful emojis rained after. My father had already responded in his usual way, just a single KKK, which in our local shorthand was more terse, "Can you believe this?" than laughter. I stared at the blue light of my phone as the notifications came in. Instagram tags, WhatsApp forwardings, even a meme of my serious face next to a banana with floating lines and numbers. Funny if it hadn't been me. Requests came for radio interviews but with an undertone. Lucas Alves, the boy who thinks computers make art. Even friends who meant well, Arta from school, his affable grin threading through his words, sent their condolences as if I'd been caught pants down in public. The meme made its way to the bar, to the family's tiny living room, to our neighborhood group, until it was no longer mine. The people I'd grown up with, faces from school, church, the Praça Tiradentes cafes, they all seemed to have shared it. Even my mother, gentle hands always in a salad bowl or resting on my shoulder, turned her head away that afternoon when I came into the kitchen. "Maybe, Philho, just try not to look," she said quietly, cutting tomatoes as if nothing was happening. But she saw it, everyone saw it. In that moment I realized the real story wasn't about data or art, it was about how easily people find unity in ridicule. That first day passed in anger. I boiled inside, jaw clenched, skin hot. But the next morning I felt only a strange quiet, like I drifted from my own body watching. I shuttered up the windows, shut off the notifications, let my phone's battery die without protest. The world continued only as shapes moving on the other side of frosted glass. A week later, I went to the co-working space, an old, peeling building near Largo de Ordem where artists and coders tried to make something new. My roommate Henrique greeted me. "Cara, you good?" He looked me up and down, not hiding his concern. "I'm fine." I wasn't, but I didn't dare elaborate. He nodded, clapped my shoulder and returned to his code. His computer glowed with colorful timelines. He'd been doing motion graphics for 6 years and still barely anyone in his family understood it. This gave me a bitter sort of comfort. I pushed myself to work. I built generative patterns from bus data, mapping the flow of city lines, the timings, the urban heartbeat. I watched as the code spun itself into growing jungles of color and movement, everything the city pulsed with, made visible, made beautiful. But I was working in silent protest now, not hope. I pitched to galleries and companies in Sao Paulo, Berlin, even Rio, but all the responses were polite variations of no. I thought of giving up. My friends and family clearly believed I had already failed. Night after night in our tiny apartment kitchen, Henrique debriefed after his own rejections, and I let conversation drift around me. The city's electric blue night flickered under our fourth-floor window. My anger stayed, quietly humming, but in the afterglow of it something like serenity developed. I had already lost my pride, and with it I felt strangely free. Years slipped by, days blurred into the steady headaches of work and rejection. I learned to live in quiet, to inhabit the periphery. Arta invited me to a reunion once, but I declined, then muted his number. My mother after the first year stopped asking when I'd come home, sensing that the answer wouldn't be soon. Yet bit by bit something shifted. One afternoon as rain pattered against the cowork's broken windows, I got an email, real, no emoji, no winking dismissal, from a small tech museum in Berlin. They'd seen a piece on my Instagram, one with the bus data swirling like a living map. They wanted to commission a full project as their annual visualization center. I showed Henrique the message, afraid even to speak. He grinned. "Finally, Mano, that's how it starts." It did start. Suddenly, things moved. I flew to Berlin, weak-kneed and jet-lagged, carrying 3 years' worth of self-doubt in my chest. Working through their exhibition, I met others, artists, coders, urban theorists, who didn't see the art as a joke. They saw what I was trying to do, to capture the beauty in complexity, the soul of a mathematical city. The installation, Urban Pulse Prelude, became a surprise success. Reviews in obscure webzines turned to features in bigger ones. With the museum's support, I received new invites. The René Sofia in Madrid wanted a piece. Sao Paulo's Bienal reached out for a collaboration. Overnight, as if those 3 years had been a mere blink, I had work, good work, work that brought me to cities so distant I had to check the map. Seoul, Johannesburg, Montreal. I sent my parents postcards I wasn't sure they'd read. At some point, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. The humiliation faded, leaving not pride exactly but peace, a serene current moving through my work. It didn't matter if my uncle from the bakery still called me a computadorista at family roast dinners I no longer attended. The world had become larger, more intricate, and I had a place in it, even if my origins no longer fit. 3 years passed before I felt the first pull to return to Curitiba. It wasn't a grand homecoming. An old friend from university, Lara, messaged me about an upcoming tech festival hosted at the Oscar Niemeyer Museum. She said they were seeking keynotes who weren't from Rio or SB, someone with roots in the city. Lucas, people remember you, time for them to see why, she wrote. That email rattled around my head for weeks. I booked a flight and thought about cancelling every day until I boarded. Memories of the plaza, the chirping bus stops, the smell of powder queijo and old summer rain washed over me as the plane descended. Sometimes absence clarifies things. The city glowed golden, green, familiar, and changed all at once. I stayed in a hotel on Rua das Flores, not at home. I told my parents only that I'd be in town to work, nothing more. Walking the city centre at dusk, cars honked, and the jacarandás dropped their litter of purple flowers along the cobbled sidewalks. I felt like a ghost in a place that had forgotten my voice. Early on the morning of my talk, my mother called, "Vai passar casa antes, will you come home first?" I hesitated, then said, "I'll try after the museum." Neither of us mentioned why it might feel difficult. Her silence filled the space. At the festival, nerves simmered under my skin but didn't boil over. I was scheduled after lunch, just long enough to let anticipation fester. The foyer buzzed, and patterns of light moved across the museum's concrete curves. I recognized no one, yet everyone seemed to know me. I caught snippets. That's Lucas Alves, the data artist, nay, didn't he leave a while back? Thought he was in Europe or something. Inside the main hall, I glanced at the program. To my shock, the city mayor would open the session. Our eyes met briefly as he passed me backstage. He nodded, quick and brusque, but it was enough. My segment was called Mapping the Invisible, the Language of Data and Art. Simple. My task was clear: demonstrate that art made from numbers wasn't only real but unmistakable. The house lights dimmed. I took the stage, mind emptier than I'd imagined. My hands, which had trembled on youth's keyboards, were still as I gripped the microphone. I began the way I once had, in Curitiba's language, unpretentious. "Gent, sinceramente, I used to think no one would ever care about this." A few honest laughs. I spoke, but this time I didn't defend myself. I explained. I showed what I did, how bus data could become a living mural, how air quality readings transformed into shifting seas of color, how rain patterns made the city sing in digital melody. Then for the climax, I called up my new piece, built for Curitiba, not Berlin or anywhere else. I had spent the last month reconstructing the city's traffic, river, air, and pedestrian movements into an evolving tapestry, part painting, part sculpture, projected in 4K over the curved wall behind me. As it unfurled, the room softened. Light and color shimmered in organic, familiar waves, red lines flowing like arteries downtown, blue pulsing along the Rio Belém, flashes of yellow where thunderstorms had once hovered. The patterns flickered and breathed. I searched the audience, wondering if anyone from home had come. A familiar face caught my eye: Arta, older, hair thinned, mouth slightly open in disbelief. I saw my Aunt Monica, fingers clutched over her lips, and my mother, small and fragile, in the statement seats at the front. The piece shifted, revealing a hidden message. The names of the city's 70 neighborhoods, embedded in the flows, shining gold beneath the data currents. People murmured. Even my uncle, who'd always said I was wasting my time, sat stiff-backed, jaw slack. Applause rippled at first, then grew. It was not polite, not obligatory. People stood, some leaning forward as if to touch the waves. Reporters snapped photographs. The mayor, a reserved man by any metric, wiped at his eye and half laughed when the cameras caught him. As the lights came up, I saw my family make their way towards the stage, tentative, uncertain. My mother's eyes watered. She didn't try to hug me, she just touched my arm. My aunt couldn't meet my gaze but pressed her hands together and smiled, trembling. Even from a distance, stragglers from my old street called my name. It felt as if a membrane between worlds had been punctured, all the skepticism and jokes dissolving in a single, undeniable moment. Reporters asked questions, their tones respectful, even awed. I shook my uncle's hand, and instead of the mocking grin I once dreaded, he said simply, "E acute nunca pensei que daria nis oviu." Parabanes, I never thought it would come to this, congratulations. Anger no longer had room inside me. I felt only serenity, the kind that comes after pain, hardened and unconditional. I belonged here and elsewhere, to my city and to myself. I was not vindicated so much as liberated. That evening I made my way back to my parents' house. The front gate creaked as I entered. My mother had made arroz with frango exactly as when I was a teenager. She set the table for three. In the warmth of that small kitchen, I breathed in the old smells of home. My father asked only, "Vai ficar pouco como gente?" Will you stay a while? I nodded and sat. Outside, Curitiba's quiet was punctuated by the brush of buses and the sough of wind in the araucaria trees. Inside, there was no more sarcasm, no more shame, only space to exist as I was, artist and son, in the city that had first taught me to dream, and finally to come home.